This is Dom Genova, host of the No Nonsense Roundtable radio show. This YouTube is what I'm calling a No Nonsense Roundtable extended play performance. That is a radio show we enhance with extra content that you can't see on the radio, well, because it's radio. This week I hosted Felix Cavaliere, founder of the rock group The Rascals. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and makes mention in the radio show about Steve Van Zant's introduction of the group when they were inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's so funny a video and so good at telling the story about the group, I'm going to start our YouTube with that and then let you listen to our radio broadcast. Enjoy.
And now, to induct the Young Rascals into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame,
please welcome the wonderful Steve Van Zant.
Some people may not realize it, but the Rascals were the first rock band in the world. In the 50s, we had vocal groups and solo people, And then in the 60s on the West Coast, you had the Beach Boys, but they really were a vocal group and they became a band later, We also had the Byrds, but McGuinn really did that first record by himself, and then they became a band later. And okay, over there in England, some guys were making some noise. But in the real world, in the center of the universe, New Jersey, the Rascals were the first band. Which is why I don't understand why it took so long to get into the Hall of Fame. Some rumors have gone around that people didn't like their physical accoutrements. Their stage garb was a little bizarre. What I'm trying to say is people think they dress funny. Now, this is a subject I know something about. And I just, for the record tonight, I want to say that there was absolutely nothing unusual about the way the Rascals dressed. Nothing strange about that. The first time I saw the Rascals was at the Keyport Rollerdrome in Keyport, New Jersey. That's right. No, there was no Fillmores. There was no arenas in those days. Rock and roll played skating rinks where it belonged. And the way rock is selling, we may be back in skating rinks next year. I don't know, but they were fantastic in those days. They were wild. Eddie would jump around. He was a wild man. He was with the tambourines and maracas, and Gene was so cool with the guitar up there. He was just fantastic. And Dino, with all due respect to all my drummer friends, and most of my friends are drummers, he was the greatest rock drummer ever. Is. He also gained fame a few years later by being the last individual in the music business to go to the Beatle haircut. He kept his hair back. And of course, Felix introducing that amazing B3, that big thing, It was amazing. To this day, every roadie in New Jersey has a hernia and back trouble. They hate him. The English roadies got to hate Stevie Winwood, but in New Jersey, they hated Felix. And I tell you, the greatest show I've ever seen. And, okay, it was also the first show I've ever seen, but since then I've seen everybody. I saw the Beatles as Shea, I saw the Rolling Stones with Brian Jones, The Who with Keith Moon, Rod Stewart with Jeff Beck, Siegfried with Roy. I've seen everybody since then, and that show holds up. It's fantastic. The first time I ever heard the song, I'll never forget it, I was with my girlfriend at the time. Beautiful girl. Oh, you should have seen this girl. I'll never forget her, Loretta Gorgonzola. She was so beautiful. She had everything. She had brains. She had everything. And we're there, just her mother was out, and we're really starting to communicate, and all of a sudden, I Ain't Gonna Eat Out My Heart Anymore comes on the radio. I just stopped. She says, what's wrong? She wasn't even there anymore. I couldn't even, it was, I don't know how else to describe it. It was the sexiest record I have ever heard in my life. The melody, the chords, Eddie's voice, the texture of Eddie with Felix and David. The guitar solo was even sexy. The organ. The record was sexier than the sex I was having with my girlfriend, let's face it. And that was when New Jersey soul was born, right there, People talk about the white soul singers, there's a lot of names that come up. But Eddie and Felix, I'm telling you right now, they're the best. I mean, with all due respect, the Righteous Brothers, we love the Righteous Brothers. They're fantastic, you know what I mean? And everybody talked about the Righteous Brothers. But they didn't have Eddie and Felix, though, you see, to sound that black, you had to be Italian. I Ain't Gonna Eat Out My Heart Anymore. You Better Run. Good Lovin'. Love Was a Beautiful Thing. A Girl Like You. I've Been Lonely Too Long. Come On Up. Groovin'. How Can I Be Sure? People Gotta Be Free. Ladies and gentlemen, Dino Danelli, Eddie Brigati, Felix Cavaliere, Gene Cornish, please. It is my honor to welcome to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it's about time, the Rascals.
Here they are again, one of the hottest new groups in the country today, the Young Rascals. Ladies and gentlemen, the Young Rascals. 1, 2, 3. Well, baby, I ain't gonna eat out my heart anymore. Woman that I ever had, now could I feel it, you know I do. Now come on, feel it. You better run, baby. You better hide, baby. You better leave from my side. All you wanna do is ride around me, sit around, Sally around. I know that love is a beautiful thing. I've been lonely too long.
Well, all of you youngsters have been asking for the Young Rascals, whose groovin' has been #1 on the charts. So here they are.
Life would be ecstasy, you and me endlessly grooving. Trouble gone, yes it's gone. I'm in ecstasy with a girl like how can I be sure? I really, really, really wanna know. It's a beautiful morning.
Felix, to my show. I'm proud to have you here.
Well, thank you, Dom. It's a pleasure.
Well, I mean, you look at your career, and I have to say it has to have been an adventure. I'm going to read this stuff off. You're in the Rock and Roll National Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Musicians Hall of Fame, Grammy Hall of Fame, Songwriters Hall of Fame, Vocal Group Hall of Fame, Hit Parader Hall of Fame, Hammond. We're going to be talking about your Hammond organ in a little bit. Right. Hall of Fame, and now you are an author on top of that.
Right. Well, yeah. What do you know?
Second, right?
Yeah, but I still can't hit a curveball. What are you going to do?
So, yeah, one of the greatest things about your book, if you go online, you get to your website. I mean, even the cover is cool. The very famous person took a picture of the cover, and it was Linda McCartney, yes. Right?
Correct. Yes. In those days, Linda was a photographer, and she used to come around to a lot of the groups and clubs that were in New York City at the time and take these phenomenal photos. And she was absolute doll.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine the people that you came across. I mean, one of the stories that I heard is at Shea Stadium when the Beatles were playing Shea Stadium. Somebody on the billboard on the scoreboard put coming up next, the Rascals. Is that true? Well,
our manager, Sid Bernstein, was the gentleman who brought the Beatles to the United States. He brought them first to the show that they did on Ed Sullivan, and then he brought them to that particular show you're talking about, which is at Shea Stadium. So we were actually after the Beatles, in the chronology of music in New York City and then the United States. And here he took the opportunity to put this sign up on the billboard. The Rascals are coming. The Rascals are coming. There's 55,000 people there. Well, Mr. Epstein, the Beatles manager, didn't take too kindly to that. He says, tell you what, either that goes or we don't play. So it was quite an event. But, it's in the history books. We were there, and we had our name there.
Yeah, you were very, very big time back then, and I think I say you wove your way into American culture. People hear your songs now, and they still resonate, and 60 years later.
Yeah, well, you see, the bar was pretty high in those days. I mean, the competition, our so-called peers, were really, really, really good. You're talking about the Stones, the Beatles, the Kinks, Lovin' Spoonful, the Animals, the Byrds. The quality of music was quite high, and I think that's one of the main reasons. I really believe that period of time in American music history was kind of like the Renaissance was in Europe.
Oh, yeah. And innovation was really the key. I mean, you try different things and you come across brick walls. I heard some things about some of your songs that you were with Atlantic Record, and Atlantic Record said, "Nah, I don't think we're gonna play that," and you convinced them, and they did, and the song was a hit. I mean, there were a couple of those, weren't there?
Well, yeah. I mean, people have to realize, this is a business. The record companies, they what they do is they put an outlay of cash for you to produce and create, and then they would like to get it back. It's completely understandable, and it's much like in today's society, although it's a little different because today when you make a statement, you take a chance of alienating a lot of the public. Which I'm sorry to say is kind of silly, because if we want to go around talking about freedom, but I can't say what I feel, or you don't like what I feel, well then I guess you don't like me.
Yeah.
Why is that? I don't get that. But that's what the record company was thinking. A friend of mine wrote a song which it's called "It's Not the Money, It's the Money." Very simple, And so they were afraid of, well, like for example, we did "Groovin'."
Yeah.
Grooving on a Sunday afternoon. It's based on kind of like, the Latin type of groove, and how, the parks in New York were filled on the, on the weekends with, congas and, people with their girlfriends and all that. Well, they said, well, where are the drums? I said, well, we have conga. Conga is a drum. No. Where are your drums? You're a rock band. Well, see, this is how good luck comes into your life. There was a disc jockey in New York named Murray the K. I don't know if you
Oh, yeah, I
him.
remember him from back when, yeah.
But Murray K was a real good guy. He was a mensch, and he was a, in those days, and I'm diverging, but the disc jockeys really liked the music they were playing. I mean, they didn't just go there and get a playlist from, Live Nation or something and play whatever they were told. He happened to be in the studio when we did Groovin'. So when I was having my argument with the record company about Groovin', he said, look, Mr. Wexler, who was, the VP of Atlantic Records, I'll put that on the radio today. And he did. And that was number one for 6 weeks in New York.
Got to take a break, but we'll be back.
In a world that's constantly changing, how can I be sure?
Welcome back. We're speaking with Felix Cavaliere, member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and founder of the group The Rascals. Well, I have a couple of questions for you. Well, this leads into a question from Scott Mayo. Scott Mayo is a music director for Sergio Mendes. And
yes.
Yeah, Scott was a guest on my show, and he said that you influenced Southern California music. He lives in L.A. now. He says, do you realize that you had an influence way out there?
Yeah, I do, because as I say, I've had the pleasure of traveling around the United States many, many times, and around transplants, from the East Coast to the West Coast. And, the music business influences each other always, I mean, I'm sure it's the same in many businesses. Like, people seem to tell me that all the automobiles look alike these days. I wonder why that is, They probably because they have the same parts in all the cars.
No, I'm a car guy. I'll tell you, a wind tunnel gives you the exact same coefficient no matter what. So that answers your question.
Yes. I got it, but that's how it is. I mean, we were discussing about like people's idols, et cetera, et cetera. But when I grew up in Pelham, New York, which is a suburb of New York City, and I had the good fortune of being present at the beginning of what we now call rock and roll pop music. Alan Freed was in Cleveland, brought his radio station, which was called Wolf Dog at the time, something like that, to New York City, to WINS. I had the good fortune of hearing it in its infancy. So I heard talk about influencing. I was a piano player. I was a classical piano player. My mom, rest her soul, wanted me to do that. And all of a sudden I heard people playing piano, but I never heard people playing piano like that where I was born, Fats Domino, Jerry Lee Lewis, Ray Charles. People were playing piano in a way I had never heard before. So I emulated it, and I never dreamt that I'd be doing it. So yeah, we're all influencing each other. The Southern California people, especially like Los Lobos and those people out there, they used to come to our shows, and they saw these white kids, these white Italian kids playing R&B music. Yeah. And putting in like a Latin flavor occasionally.
Yeah, I hear that.
It's all together. It's all together.
We're talking to Felix Cavaliere, who is the founder of the Rascals. Still continuing. You have a show on April, I think it's 8th here in Seneca Casino in Niagara Falls. I know. I know that because I bought 2 tickets.
Amen. Well, that's a show that's been canceled a few times, so we're kind of looking forward to it.
So one of the questions that I had, and I think I telegraphed this to you, was from a fellow, another show guest I had. His name is Chuck Piccato. Chuck Piccato had a group back in the 60s, and it was called the Rustics, and he published under the Motown label. He has some great Barry Gordy stories that we recount sometimes when we go to lunch and whatever. And and he was saying that you were his idol, which is really, I mean, that's really kind of cool, you find. But he wants to know, he said, do you have somebody who was an influence, an idol, a particular individual as an influence, an idol for you?
Sure. Only we don't have enough time to tell you all of them. Ray Charles, Benny King, Smokey Robinson, Fats Domino. I looked up to people that, what people don't realize, today we have computers, as you say, the technology is quite advanced, we've even got an electric car, but in those days, you either sang well or you didn't record. It's kind of the same thing as a word processor, people don't need to spell anymore. They just check the spelling and it's corrected. Well, we have the same thing now with music. You don't have to sing anymore. Well, we'll fix you right up. We'll tune you right up. Anyone. Believe me, it wasn't like that in the old days. Either you sang well or you played well or you just went home. So the people who were around from the so-called old days, they're pretty damn good, man.
Let's change the direction altogether. What if you want people to know one thing about you? What would it be?
I can't dunk a basketball.
No, seriously.
No,
if you were to say, if I was to say, oh, Felix Cavaliere, you know what? This is what this guy is all about. What are you all about?
You know what? I can tell you some stories. But
yeah, go ahead.
Basically,
yeah.
All right. I was near. I believe I was near Albany, and this gentleman came up to me. I was back. It was kind of like backstage. It was an outdoor concert, and he said, "Excuse me, Mr. Cowell, can I speak to you?" And I said, "Of course." And he gave me his dog tags.
Wow.
And I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "What is this all about, man?" He says, "Well, let me tell you something. You saved my life." I said, "What are you talking about?" "I was in Vietnam," he said. I was part of they used to have these patrol boats that went up the Mekong Delta to take back the wounded. It was a Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "I heard you all, Rascals, were going to be on this show called Hullabaloo," which in those days was a, kind of like our outlet other than Ed Sullivan and Shindig. I told the people, I said, "I'm going to take the next boat. I want to see the Rascals." That boat didn't make it.
Oh,
they all got killed. Now, when you hear stories like that, you realize that the music has a major part in people's lives. Here's a perfect example, somebody who was spared. I have been to Japan where they don't understand a word I'm saying, but they feel what we were saying. When you can leave with anything like that in your so-called legacy, that's pretty good. So we made you happy. We made you safe. We healed some wounds. And I got a nice family. What can I say?
And you've had quite an adventure, and you continue to have a good adventure. I mean, like I say, you're still playing, you're still getting around, now writing a book. Well, tell me about the book itself. I mean, what is the
Sure.
Obviously I don't have a copy of it yet, but tell me about the book and what you do with the book and the story of the book.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. Basically, in 2013, this gentleman by the name of Steve Van Zandt approached the original cast, Felix Cavaliere's Rascals. They did the Rascals, and they spoke to us. He said, "How would you all like to do a reunion Broadway show?" So of course, we said yes. We did it, and I mean, there's a lot leading up to that, but in essence, that's what happened. Well, when you do a show like that, you have to advertise it, just like we were talking about, marketing, etc. You did press conferences. So here we were, the four of us sitting on a stage, and people asking us questions. Everybody had a different answer for the same question.
Really?
I said, now wait a second. It's like when you tell a joke sometimes.
Yeah.
You hear somebody tell that joke. That's not the joke I told you. You extrapolate it. Well, that's what happened. So, I mean, simple things like how'd you get the name? What were those outfits about? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I said, wow, you know what? I better write a book, man. I better write this down because I'm not even sure world history is correct. I don't know who was the last man standing. That's the story we got. So anyway, that's how it started.
Well, there are a couple of things I want to tell people who don't maybe are not aware. But Steve Van Zandt had a musical career and a performance as an actor career. You want to kind of touch on who Steve Van Zandt is, if you would, please.
Well,
for those who don't know.
So Steve Van Zandt is part of Bruce Springsteen's band,
Mm-hmm.
the E Band, the E Street Band. However, everything is connected in our world, whether we know it or not. So Steve Van Zandt also was part of the nominating board for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So he and a few other individuals put our name in front of the people to be in the Hall of Fame. He was a big fan. Okay, so I'm skipping ahead a little bit. When we went into the Hall of Fame, which was approximately 96, something like 97, he did the induction. If you haven't seen or heard the Rascals induction ceremony to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, please tune in. He was brilliant. He did a whole shtick on...
I know. Yeah.
And that's how he got The Sopranos. The gentleman who does The Sopranos saw him, called him up. Now, he's not an actor. He wasn't an actor. He was a musician. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'd like you to audition for this role. All of a sudden, he became a gangster. Figure that out.
Yeah, and then after that, Lilyhammer. So I mean, this guy, it's funny how things work. And you're absolutely right. It is a hoot. So back then, you had this thing where you had outfits, and I know Stevie Van Zandt had it under his coat, and he takes off his coat, and there's a outfit, and the outfit is knickers.
The situation was that the club owners demanded a suit and tie, a jacket and a tie. When you worked. We were trying anything to get out of the jacket and the tie. First of all, it wasn't easy to perform in that. We're not at a bar mitzvah or a wedding. So we came up with an idea, and, the idea was to have like these knickers and a shirt. But he said, you still have to wear a tie. So that's how that happened. It's the evolution of mankind. It was really, as soon as we could get rid of those, we got rid of them. And, now you're lucky if they have a shirt on.
Well, where do you go buy knickers in 1962 or whatever it was? Where do you find knickers? I mean, there's no knickers. New York.
Find anything in New York. New York, you find anything. We've had, it's a tremendous advantage growing up. Near New York City. Tremendous. I mean, people. They don't understand. There's a community of New York City. It's a bunch of neighborhoods. It's not a jungle. It's a community of neighborhoods, which was really, really, really obvious in the old days. They were Irish and they were Italians and they were Jews and they were blacks and they were Spanish. And you know what? They got along. What do you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Arthur Avenue in the Bronx, you and I were talking about that when we were doing a little bit of show prep. I mean, it was the Italian neighborhood, and they did business with each other and looked after one another, and you could have your kids out on the street, and you went to the Catholic school, and it was a community back then.
What do you know? We need to get back to a little bit of that, a little bit of do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Just a reminder, you can get Felix's book at felixcavalieremusic.com or on Amazon. We'll be back right after this.
Don't have to be alone, no.
Well, welcome back. We're listening to Felix Cavaliere, founder of the group The Rascals. So we're talking about questions that I got. I got one from Elvio Fernandez. I don't know if you know Elvio or not, but he sings with Daughtry. And he has
yes.
Yeah, he has a question for you. He said, if you were to play with any other rock band other than the Rascals at any point in history, what would it be?
Wow. Rock band's got to be a rock band?
Oh, any band. Go ahead.
Weather Report.
Really?
If I could handle it, yes, sir. Yep. That's I love that. I love those guys. There's a lot of rock bands, but there's not too many Weather Reports. If I could do it, I'd like those guys. I love them. And the drummer lives down here in Tennessee, Chester Thompson. Joe Zavino, of course, the keyboard player, was a friend at Atlantic. He's no longer with us, but that's who I would love to be.
And I'm not familiar with them. I'm going to have to look that up online. That's educational. Thank you.
Well, he knows who they are. But basically, they're happening. They're a fusion jazz magnificent bunch of talent. And there's other Toto's another one. Toto, the guys from Toto, phenomenal band. The Porcaros, Lukather. I mean, these guys are top of the line, man. I would say Toto and Weather Report.
Oh, good. Okay, so here's another question from somebody in the music business. Jerry Boone has had a band up here for 54 years called Sky Coasters, local band, and he said to talk to you about this big. What was it? A Hammond B3, or it's supposed to be. I talked to a couple of people about this thing. The instrument that you played on, 2 keyboards, the pedal you played bass on, and they say you're doing that and you're singing at the same time. If you see a picture of this thing, ladies and gentlemen, it's the size of a lifeboat, for God's sakes. I mean.
Well, chiropractors love me because anybody has to carry this thing around.
Yeah, and Van Zandt said the roadies hated you.
Yeah,
it's like it's like you need a pallbearers to carry the damn thing around, right? I mean,
it really is a big, heavy instrument which was never made for transportation by humans. Right?
Yeah.
Scott. It's an interesting instrument.
Scott said it has a very unique sonic palette. He called it.
That's very well put. Scott's got it together. Absolutely, sonic palette. I like that.
So how do you do that? I mean, how do you play like that and you're singing at the same time, and the coordination you have to have? You say, well, you can't play basketball, but boy, I got to tell you that.
Well, let's go back a ways here. How many? Let me go back quite a few. How many remember the first time they got on a bike?
Well, yeah. Well, I still have the black and blue on my leg from running into the pole. I'm not very coordinated, so I do know. So,
but you did learn how to ride it, though, didn't you?
Yeah,
2 legs, 2 feet, 2 arms.
Not well, though.
It's the same thing. Basically, if you want to do something, and if you really love it, you have to have some musical knowledge, of course, because there are keys involved in this thing. But, it's the same thing. I mean, seriously, you learn how to use your legs. You learn how to use your hands. You learn how to use your drummers have a similar thing because they use all their limbs as well. Mm-hmm. Those are all different instruments. There's a hi-hat over here. There's a snare drum over here. There's bass drums on your feet. Basically, you have to be coordinated, but you also got to love what you do. God made us. We really can adapt, and so if you want to do it, you can do it, and I really wanted to do it. I have a story about it. Like I say, I happened to be going in Pelham. I went to this club up in what they call New Rochelle.
Yeah.
And I heard an organ trio. It was in a black neighborhood. They were called the Mighty Cravers. It was a gentleman playing organ, playing bass with his feet, playing rhythm with his left hand, playing lead with his right hand, and singing. And I said, "Oh my God, gotta learn that." That's a encapsulated story of that's how it happened.
Do you think it's God's gift, your talent?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, everything is. I mean, you're a marketer. Where do you think you got it from?
Well, that's one of the things about my show. I find these people who have either taken turns in their lives and done something different. And one of the guys, and the fella, is Carl Laporta. Now, Carl Laporta writes a letter to the editor to the Democrat and Chronicle saying that we should have a Rochester Music Hall of Fame. And they go, okay, go ahead and start one. And then he starts the Rochester Music Hall of Fame. Now, not nobody, but a lot of people don't know Carl. But boy, I tell you, he took initiative. He did something, and you got something out of that you wouldn't have expected. And who knew that he has such a cool life, right?
Well, let me tell you, why don't you name, when you're not on this show, but why don't you name some of the honorees that have come from Rochester?
Oh, my God. Amazing. Well, Gene.
Well, you got that Eastman School of Music.
Oh, yeah.
And you got some people, the Mangione brothers.
Sure.
You've got, I understand, what's his name? Cab Calloway comes from there.
Yeah.
There's a pretty interesting list of folks that come from that town, let me tell you. And I wonder if people are aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, Gene, who played with you. You have Lou Graham. Well, yeah, a very prestigious group of people, inductees into the Hall of Fame. Now, you were talking about younger people. Now Fred Costello is the organist here at the Red Wings. He's going to be soon he's going to be the longest tenured ballpark organist in the United States, which is really kind of cool. He can go into the history books, and he had a career back in your day when you guys were on top of things, and he played a lot in Vegas and Tahoe, whatever, and more than just the local ballpark organist. Right. And he asked me, I asked him what he says. Ask Felix what he thinks of today's music, and oh, there you go. I'm going to let you loose on this one, and then maybe you can tell us what you think of the halftime show.
Oh boy, had an interesting conversation.
You want me to stop You want me to stop the recording?
No. Again, you go back to your parents, and like when your parents, when they first heard rock and roll, what they said.
Yeah.
I mean, it was greeted with like disdain.
Ooh.
Well, it really was. I mean, especially down south here where I am right now. I mean, they thought it was devil's music, and they were right. I'm only kidding. No. But, I did an interview yesterday. There's a gentleman out west named Bob Lefsitz. He does a podcast, a blurb every day. And he always comments about the Super Bowl halftime. And about many other things in the music industry. He's very erudite. He's really been around a long time. And I asked him the same question. He said, Bob, I didn't see your review of the halftime show. And he said, well, I ran into a little problem. And he said, a lot of my friends and allies are responsible for that show. So I couldn't say anything. That's a huge part of our music right now. That is a huge. I mean, those people on that stage. I don't know if you're familiar with the Dr. Dre empire. He's a billionaire.
Oh yeah,
billionaire, not a millionaire. Billionaire. These people are, and Snoop Dogg. These people are amazingly wealthy. They've created a whole new genre that you can't turn your back on it because it's there. And it's huge. So, it's not up to me to, I'm more of a melody man, I mean, I love melody. I love, kind of like the sonority that instruments bring. And of course, I also like the rhythms and the beat, but I really prefer the melody rather than that. And then, of course, from a lyrical point of view, I'll tell you, writing a rap or hip hop song is very difficult. I've tried it a few times, making all those words,
right,
that come in buckets. It's not easy. It's a very difficult thing. And it's a very difficult thing to have somebody, say, well, that's a good one. It's really interesting. They have down here in Nashville, we have an Afro-American Hall of Fame right now.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is, it's like a it's a museum where you go in, and it starts with Africa. It starts with the Latin, and it goes through all the way to the current generation. The current generation, what they have done is they've put these booths in it so you can do your own rap song live.
Wow,
people love it. Well, what can I say to people? Love it. They love it. God bless them. It's not easy to do.
And the other thing that somebody pointed out to me, and see if you subscribe to this too, is that in days you would have Smokey Robinson sing, or you would have Diana Ross sing, or whatever, and there were people, the singers were backing up, or the singers the performer was in front of the music, where now the performer is part of the music, a part of a group that's doing the performance all together at the same level. Do you subscribe to that? Do you think that's about there's been a change like that with especially with hip hop?
Well, I'll give you an example. Okay, some people write songs. There's one writer. Sometimes there's two writers. You know how many people write these songs? If you look at the credits on some sort of an album or whatever they sell these days, there's like 5-10 people on a song.
Really?
The drummer gets credit. Yes, it's a different planet now. Rodgers and Hart, Lennon and McCartney, and Minority. You know, it's a group effort now to make a record. You know, in that particular genre, everybody that's there gets credit. Very different, man. Very different. Very different.
We'll be back right after this. Welcome back. You're listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're speaking with Felix Cavaliere. You can buy Felix's book at felixcavalieremusic.com or on Amazon. The thing about your music, too, is that I don't know how you come up with the really incredible creative things that you do. I mean, it's a beautiful morning. You start out with what, Swiss bells at the beginning of that?
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
And grooving birds, and the birds really weren't birds. I mean, how do you think of this stuff?
Well, you know, I've been asking myself that for a long time.
But it works. Okay, so
I had an idea. I had an idea. You know,
please tell the story.
Good story.
Yeah, tell the story.
You know, you were talking about musical kind of people, like you know, influencing one another. Do you remember Yellow Submarine?
Yeah.
Do you remember how it began with the bells? You know, the sea. You know, the
oh yeah.
I said, wow, what a great idea. We're creating an environment for that music to exist in. You know, in those days, we were looking for ideas like that. Like, you know, we were thinking of, like, for example, putting an album out with some scents in it, so that, you know, you could taste, you know, you could smell the. Well, anyway, hold on a second. I gotta stop you there. A scratch and sniff 45. Yeah, they threw me right out. They threw me right out of the building. But anyway, long story short, so I heard this idea. Exactly. So of course the record company said, "Yo, okay, well, thank you very much. We'll speak to you some other time." But I happened to think that that's what McCartney was doing. So I ran into him in England, you know, and I said, "Man, Paul, what a great idea. Holy God, you know, I really feel that." And I created this environment. He looked at me like I was nuts.
Okay, but what? Okay, now my 12-year-old brain starts kicking in, Felix.
Yeah, exactly.
What would the smell be?
Very simple, very simple. Yeah. I mean, use your imagination.
Yeah, there you go. So, but the bird now the thing is, the birds in the beginning of the song really aren't birds, right?
Right, they're Brigadis.
The Brigadis.
They're Brigadi birds. They're Jersey birds.
Yeah, they're giving you the bird in one way or another. But
no, you see,
it's good stuff.
These guys, you know, you see, this is the tragedy. You know, like we had a wonderful group. We had a group of people. You know, I loved them dearly. Unfortunately, later in life, they've really disappointed me with the fact that they haven't grown up and matured as human beings. But we used to have free studio time at Atlantic, believe it or not. We had a laboratory to work in that I've always been thankful that we could do whatever we wanted, you know, and basically as long as we were making hits. Wilson Pickett used to say, "Damn, those Rascals, man, I can never get in the studio. They occupy it all the time." We lived there to create, you know, and to me it was like, you know, what more could you ask for? A professional studio with professional people around. But, you know, we used to fool around a lot. Well, one of these days I had an idea to do some sounds, just like I said. So Eddie and his brother David, who were both, you know, singers and, you know, with the Rascals. His brother was not an actual member, but he had a beautiful voice, fantastic. They went in the room, they put the microphone up, and they started making animal sounds. But I mean, really well done. You know, I mean, they did like elephants and goats and then they did birds, and we used the birds. They also did like traffic arguments and beeping. Oh my God, you know, we had a lot of fun. We really did.
What was the most? Okay, let's talk about fun. What's the most fun you ever had? So you're like, oh man, I can't believe we are where we are, doing what we're doing. It's like you finally just felt like you were on top of the world. Is it one feeling, one day, 1 month, 1 year? What was it?
Well, there's so many. I mean, seriously, been very, very lucky. I would say, look, one of the highlights of my career is the fact that we were the Beatles in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to say, well, you know what? The hell with the rest of the world. Let's just stay here and be famous, because what more could you ask for? We had a relationship with the Hawaiian Islands that to this day, I wrote a song. We wrote a song called My Hawaii, which was a #1 record for quite a while there. It's just a magic place. If you haven't been, you should go. And, to be accepted and to be, kind of looked up to there, you can't ask for much more.
What I hear from you too, I don't hear, I hear somebody who is looking back and kind of wishing maybe this or that didn't worked out differently or whatever. But I don't hear any real disappointments in what your life has become. You sound like you're pretty well together as far as that's going. You don't look back and hold grudges. It sounds like.
Man, I tell you, I think that's what made us a good team, because basically some people see plus and some people see minus, you know what I'm saying? I always saw plus. I've been very fortunate in my life. I had a great family, we were loved. But you have tragedies, you have tragedy. Nobody escapes.
Right.
But, I think if your parents give you that plus, that positive energy, it lasts your whole life. I was very, very lucky. I mean, my family were, they were educated people, and as I say, nobody escapes the tragedies, but we always were taken care of mentally, physically, and emotionally, and that's what we try to do. I mean, Italian families, if they do the old country way, they're pretty happy, pretty healthy people.
Yeah, we are. We have our tribe, but we're pretty open-minded, I think. So now you're performing for the love of it. You're going to be in the Seneca Casino soon. And tell me, from what I can tell about talking to you when we were doing our show prep, you are into entertaining the audience. You weave some other songs into your songs, and you let people feel good, and I'm sure all the people are singing along with you. God forbid, that's my pet peeve though. When I come to see you, I don't want somebody singing your song next to me.
Gotcha.
I didn't pay all that money to hear Maud sing.
Gotcha.
Grooving,
gotcha.
So
interesting, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're obviously having fun. And you want the audience to you want the audience to have fun. It sounds like.
Yeah, it's very simple. I mean, seriously, and not to be like like philosophical at this point, but when you look around the planet Earth and you look at what's going on, like right now in Ukraine, it's kind of hard to complain. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to say, oh, poor me, man. Like the price of gas is high. Yeah, I know, man. But at least nobody's throwing bombs at me. You know what I'm saying? We're very fortunate to be in the United States of America, whether you like it or not. We're very lucky.
Yeah.
And you better realize that. We've been isolated from wars. We've been isolated from famines until recently, pandemic. We're very, very lucky to be in the United States of America. And everybody should kiss the ground.
Amen. Amen, brother.
Yes, sir. Kiss the ground.
You're probably a Yogi fan. I was quite a Yogi fan when I was a young boy.
Oh, yeah.
And Yogi, he says if the world was perfect, it wouldn't be.
Yeah, that's another story there. Anyway, man, the time flies, man, when you're having fun. I enjoyed every minute.
Oh, I enjoy talking to you. It's. I mean, I have to tell you, it seems like we should have known each other earlier in our lives, because you're a delightful guy to know. You're a talented
Likewise.
guy. You're a humble guy. You get it. You're a thankful guy. You're religious guy in the way that we were brought up and everything, and it's been wonderful spending time with you. And I have to tell you, I'm proud to know you. It's been great, and we'll see what my producer can do putting this show together. Thank you ever so much.
Hey, God bless, man. Take care of yourself, and thank you for your time.
Well, thanks for being on the show, Felix, and thanks to everybody listening. Besides my thanks to Felix, there are a number of other people I need to thank. First, I'd like to thank the Bob Johnson Auto Group, who sponsors the No Nonsense Roundtable show on News Radio M 1180 every Saturday. A great place to buy a car or truck or get one fixed. Next, I'd like to thank my radio producer, Justine Van Nostrand, who did a magnificent job piecing together this show. She's also the voice of my intro every week and does wonderful voiceovers. And I'd like to thank my YouTube producer, Anthony DeVola, who gave you those fantastic visuals on the YouTube. Both are always looking for interesting work, and if you have occasion to need their services, just contact us at nononsenseroundtable.com. And of course, I'd like to thank you for viewing. And if you like the show, please click like. We get a charge out of that. And hit subscribe if you can. It's no cost. We get an even bigger charger out of that. And check out our other shows at nononsenseroundtable.com. Again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.